Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you, everybody?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Ramadan Mubarak, Doctor.
Ramadan Mubarak. How are you and how is things around in Britain?
Everything is good, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. That's Doctor. We're about to set up now on the live. If you could give me just a minute. Bismillah. Okay, Mumtaz. We're live. Dr. Jassim, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you all there from Qatar.
Most welcome.
Allah yahfadkum. We are incredibly excited for this segment. It's going to be a pretty quick one because our good doctor is short on time, but we really appreciate him coming on. Inshallah, the structure of the conversation will be a 30-minute talk. And then, inshallah, will be a Q&A segment with the doctor, and then inshallah we'll wrap it up. As a brief introduction to Dr. Jassim is a globally renowned thought leader, intellectual, writer, lecturer in a variety of topics, mainly around evolving and building the capacity of young generations to enable them to better build their nation and serve humanity. He's also set up the Nahda project, which aims to cast a more open inquiry into an Islamic-oriented social change, allowing youth more autonomy to design their own projects with a focus on mentorship to help them succeed. Dr. Jassim, welcome.
Thank you very much. So now I have to just deliver the talk.
Please.
I was expecting somebody else to do it.
maybe next time. Maybe next time.
Anyway, my project actually, which I was worked for now around 30 years. Is revolving around the question of reformation and change. This started around the year 1984. I was in Britain at that time, and there was a peak of the Islamic movement and Islamic activity at that time. People who are my age, they can remember that time where there was a lot of activities which is around Islam. And at that time, the Afghani hope and the rest of the Islamic movement was just about to say that there is what they call the Islamic State, and things is going that way. So at that time, there was a big question: is this real? And is this will be maturated in what people think is possible? At that time, we get through a long discussion in Britain between too many people who were studying there, most of them as students working for their doctorate and for their membership of Royal College of Physicians, and there is engineers and things like this. It took around 2 or 3 months of discussions. Final conclusion was this not going to work. And that was raised a question in my mind. So what's going to work then? If all this activity, all this energy which we put in all these activities is not going to work, why it's not going to work? And what else we can do to make it work? So at that time, I decided to shift from medical concerns. I was working in a hospital at that time, so I decided to shift to the humanities. I started reading for this project from 1984 till around 2000, and I at that time I thought that I have concluded a few things, and I'd like to share it with other people. So the main project was actually what is our current situation, as Muslims, which is a big question because we are around billion of Muslims around the world plus. And the question is to analyze all this situation is very difficult. It's almost nearly impossible. But what is our situation as Muslims in general, and what is the future we would like to be, and the vision we are looking for. My thinking at that time that I was on the main road, I was there, and I have something to say to the young generation. I was at that time I was in my 50s, so I thought it is a mature age to deliver a message to young generation, so they did not pass through the same way I passed it through, because we have a long way from the 70s till 2000. So to conclude that, I differentiated between 3 levels of work. The first one is the state, how states gets from underdevelopment to development, and to the communities, because I was in Britain at that time. I saw the situation of the communities, the Muslim communities. So the communities, how they can pass from this stage of alienation to be effective community in wherever they are in Europe or America. And the third level is the individual level, how we can prepare people for the future. So I will just pass the idea of the state, because that is a huge idea. How states gets from underdevelopment to development is a question. The community is yours actually, because you have to do that. That work is still need a lot of work to be done to analyze the situation of the community and to see what is the future of these communities in Britain and in the rest of Europe. And I will concentrate on the individual reformation and the change which we need actually to adopt and to get through to the next level of work. So my work actually is just to make a bridge between the current situation of the level of the individuals to the next stage of the future vision, and how to prepare people to do the work which is needed actually for their either the state or the community or for themselves. I noticed that most of what they call leadership programs actually is concentrating on management and management ideas and the tools. So how to plan your time, how to plan for your company, how to plan for X, how to do this, how to do that. It's about skills, all of it. Now, change actually is not about skills. It's about the deeper ideas, how we see the world around us. Because if you give somebody a chisel and a hammer without having the material to work upon with the hammer and chisel, it will not work. So the hammer is that wealth of ideas which is carried by the people actually. So I designed a program which I call 360 program, and we deliver part of it in Britain around I think the last year. That was a small part of it, regarding those 360 degrees of work which should be, and knowledge which should be carried with the people who is going to make the change really alive. That part of it is a huge part actually, but it's not a lengthy one, because we designed the program around modules and models, and it's conceptual program where people is getting a minimum amount of information, but structural and up to the point. This program was regarding how to see the world actually, philosophically, politically, economically, and how to see the history in general and our history as Muslims. And it goes on to talk about geopolitics and economy and politics by itself and religion, and finally, how to manage things. So it is a 4-quadrant program, which is carried for the people who are willing actually to be part of the critical mass. So one of the key ideas which I am propagating, that we need a critical mass who are really believing in project of the future. For the time being, there is a lot of problems regarding young Muslims. Too many of them are giving up and losing hope actually in the future, or they are just carrying their own life without any purpose, real purpose for the future. So how to reform all this situation and make it working again? I wrote 18 books regarding this subjects from different angles. All of these angles which I use actually is regarding the same subjects: how to build the critical knowledge for people who is willing to be leaders of the future, and avoiding that extra talking regarding management by itself, skills by itself, because there is too many people who's working in the skills, but the meat of the whole things, the real things, is nobody is talking about. So I concentrated on that in that topic. Now, how we can move from here to there? Actually, from myself, I think that for individuals, they have to do 3 things. One is to build themselves by real knowledge, how to see the world again by a new way of thinking. And the second thing, how to work together, because Muslims is divided even in their communities between Salafis and between Ikhwan Muslimin and between other groups, which is all the time is just getting more and more in numbers. How to get through all these divisions and to work together is a problem, because we need a main line of work. So all of us can work within even the minimum conditions. This is now impossible because people is divided, and we need to solve this problem. So we have good ideas, we have to work together. And the third thing, which is also an important part of it, we have to change the system of thinking, which is the most difficult part actually in any nation. Their way of thinking is very problematic, and right now we are having it. Now you will inshallah azza wa jal, you will come to the Eid of Ramadan, and you will have the problem of Hilal. So the day we solve this problem scientifically, instead of thinking about what he said and that said, because this is a scientific fact that there is one Hilal, there is no 3 or 4 Hilals, and scientifically we can get it right from day one without thinking more about it. But yet we will continue at the same problem, asking the same questions and running in circles all the time. This is because the way of thinking is not changing. We are still thinking in the old ways, which is the time is proving that it is not a good way to think. So on this individual part, we have developed a program, and we have developed books for that, and we are propagating the message and training people on that regard. So in conclusion, in all of these things, we are trying to build the capacity of the young generation, not to continue in the same old programs, but to make a shift in the paradigm to a paradigm which can make us be effective in the future, a nearby future. And we can deliver what we are promising instead of turning in circles all the time. This is the, in a nutshell, what I would like to deliver, and I'll leave the rest for the questioning. So the floor is for you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that brief introduction, Dr. Jassim. And like I said, inshallah, in the future, there will be more room for engagement and collaboration with us, and this is just the beginning. I'll kick off the first question that I have, and then I'll leave it to the rest of the team that can go into the range of questions that we hopefully will ask. Dr. Jassim, you've pointed out to these three key aspects that you think are incredibly important to build the capacity for the next generation of leaders. Have you seen any, because you've got a unique perspective in terms of having engaged with the community in the West and back home, have you seen any particular different needs in the young generation in the West, for instance, and the young generation in the Middle East? And if you have, what are they? And if you've seen more commonalities than differences, what are those commonalities? And how do you think we can you can find a way to bring together the upcoming generation in the West and in the East?
I think the main difference is that there is identity crisis regarding to young generation who's living in Western communities. Despite they are the second generation and the third generation probably, but still there is that problem of identity crisis. Having said that, we need a theory regarding this, which align people with their new community, which is not new regarding that, because people know the past around probably 100 years in this country, so they are not new, but still we are carrying that antagonism with the society we are living in, and that will need a huge work, theoretical work actually, to analyze the situation and to adopt a new paradigm in seeing these things. So new generations are being propagating the message differently to the families. They deliver the message to the new generation differently than just trying to be afraid that those people will be dissolved in this new community. So we have to protect them by adding more protection lines, ending up by alienation from the community. So they are not British and they are not Somalis, they are not Eritreans, they are not Arabs, they are something in between, which is very, very painful actually for young generation. So we have to get through that problem. But the other problems actually is we are having still in Britain, at least I have no knowledge actually except about Britain because I lived a lengthy time in Britain. But I think the rest of the European community is the same. That still we are delivering for the young generation the same sort of ideas, which is maybe I'm not sure that it's even suitable for our situation in our countries, but it's propagated there and being rooted again in the community in the West. The new generations actually need new ideas, a new dream for their future, and to see themselves as active participants in the life around them. So they are not making a castle, but making a bridge to the community. That's the difference between being enthusiastic about how to be a good part of the community instead of being an isolated part of the community all the time, is afraid of that somebody will raid our castle. So this is very important actually. The rest of it, actually, the problem of knowledge, I can see it around here and there, because the idea of human development, which is exactly related either about positive psychology or about management skills, is cultivating the land, where people actually need to know about politics, about history, about philosophy, about things which is really can change the personality and perspective of life. And this is not happening either here or there. We are just fighting up on the ground to get the ground for these ideas to go on. So this is the situation right now. This is the difference between here and there. There is no identity crisis around here, but from cultural point of view, still we are lagging behind here and there.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, please. Thank you for that, Dr. Jassim. And then, like I said, yeah, Yassine can now take it forward with the questions that we've been having coming in.
Yeah, thank you for the answer, Doctor. I appreciate that. I think that answered in a very good way, and I think it's a good coincidence as well that one of the first questions that we received was very similar to what you answered just now. So someone asked, a lot of Muslims in the West are having an experience now where they might start in a new job or a new environment, and they are the first Muslim to be there, and there isn't anyone else that's kind of paved the way before them. So how can we, in order to avoid this identity crisis, as you say, what's the best way to conduct yourself so that you are integrating, but at the same time you are also holding on to your own morals and traditions and building bridges, as you're saying, instead of becoming a castle in a foreign place?
Actually, the most important thing which is common between all people is good characters. So if you are Muslims or Hindu or whatever, and you are working in a place, if you have a good character, good deeds, then that will show itself. And people will just ignore the part which is the difference between you and them, and they will concentrate on this good deeds. I know a lot of our brothers, actually, they worked when their language was not that good, and were in a situation where they are just being seen as different. But with time, people get trust on them because they have a good characters, good moral, moral ideas and moral behavior. And they have concentrated in their relations with the other people to be as good as possible, being merciful, being generous, being kind. This is the things which cross the bridges wherever you are in the world. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. So you can pass any bridges if you have that characters.
That's an excellent answer. Thank you very much for that. Do any of you guys have any questions before I ask some more? Mohammed, Abdul Fattah?
Yes, ask a couple more from your side, and then Fattah is gonna jump on, and then I've got a question after that, inshallah.
I've got a question as well after that, but yeah,
okay.
Okay. So yeah, the next thing I wanted to answer. So you spoke about building bridges with outside of our communities. However, within our communities, I think one of the problems you mentioned, which is very, very true, a lot of people are very individualistic in the world that we live in today. So they are secluding themselves and nafsi. They're worrying about themselves, and they're not very interested in the community. So how do we foster either for this generation or maybe for the next generation a way to allow people to want to work together?
Actually, we are still in our community, and I think still in Britain, in other words, when you are propagating the message of why for our generations, always we are talking about the perspective of work. So you have to study because your family is waiting for you. You have to study because you have to get a good job, get a good earning. You can get married easily. So all these things is actually preventing us from seeing the reality of what we are doing. All these things is common for all people around. All people in the world is needing these things. This goes in. What is the difference then between a human being who's having a knowledge about why he is there, and between a human being who is just doing all these things and consider it the end of the road? This is what he is willing to go for, because he is trying to build his own life without seeing that he is part of bigger project. This bigger project actually is regarding the deepest instinct of a human being. We are not developing that. We don't have people who is worried about things like their relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their relation with the animals, with the human being, with their goals regarding the whole environment around us. Rahmatan lil alameen is not there. We are not building that capacity in the young people. So whatever you are feeding them, actually, it showed its things in life. If you feed them bigger ideas from the start, and they can share these ideas with others, and they see themselves as an instrument of a change of the community and the world around them, then you give them the real purpose of living. But we are giving the wrong purpose, and that's why people is doing the same as we are telling them. You are an individual, you have to be successful in your life. Okay, I did that, I am fine, I'm doing my best, I am good, have good marks in the school, so I'll get a good job, and that's it. Bye-bye, thank you very much. So after that, we get these problems of depression and all these things, which is going on with life. So actually, the mistake starts from the first day, because the father and mother is having no dreams. We are not having a manual even for the families, what they should tell their children, how they make a character in the house first. So they go to school, and the school doing the same thing. We are actually not inserting that device, which is make the life different. We are giving them the wrong devices, so they are doing the things which we are giving them. So I think from my side of view, that the first thing we have to deliver, actually, that there is a moral life. There is an idea behind that life, which is deeper than just going on in materialistic things, which is very important to live the materialistic, but it's very important to have the meaning of all these things around us. So this meaning actually is part of seeing the bigger picture from the start on from life. Now our kids actually is, I wrote a book called the project, the Quran system, the Quranic system, and the human project. It's regarding this idea. We have to see the bigger picture, that Islam is not just mere religion, which we go for Ramadan, and we end up by just having a festival and all these things. It's a project of life. It is deep instinct of your inner power. So it's not about bridging for the outsiders. It's bridging inside to see that wealth which is inside. Still, we are, as Muslims, actually, we are not propagating the message rightly. It started from the home and start from the schools and all these things. So we have to make a lot of emphasis and write a lot of books in these deep instincts, instead of saying, wow is not working. Without building that capacity from the childhood, by seeing things, seeing people around them working with a new paradigm, those young generation will get the same problems in the future. So this is what I'm thinking, actually. I'm thinking carefully. Actually, in this Ramadan, I have a time actually to think deeply in what's wrong with all these ideas going around us. We do not make that bridge, which is inside a bridge, with ourselves actually first, to build the outside bridge rightly.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I feel like a lot of the things that you learn when you're very young and the foundations of people, when they are growing up is not correct, as you're saying. People don't know anything about their own religion, they don't have any ideas of the outside world and the future. And that means later on, when the media and when all these external forces come and maybe attack your ideas that you might have, because they're not very developed in your head, it's not the way to go. So would you say that the first thing that you should instill in an individual is knowledge and ideas before you can move ahead to the building bridges and working together and changing your way of thinking?
This is very important, actually. Are we really inserting that instrument of rahmatan lil alameen? Actually, even when we talk about Islam in our community, we are talking about Islam as a religion which is having a problem with the outsiders. It is some sort of enmity with the world instead of harmony with the rest of the world. So the kids, they find themselves in between, that if they adopt this model which we are propagating, they will be enemies of the whole world. And they try to do something which is in between, that they just live it as a habit and leave the rest for their old fathers. We have the model itself should be changed, that they can see that this model which we are propagating is rahmatan lil alameen really, and it can be good for any other people, even if they are not Muslim. So that will make the difference for our communities and our life, actually, and the human being life as well.
Thank you, Doctor.
Sorry, Doctor. I've got a quick question in regards to how you quickly touched upon how to better the view of how we see the world and how to like look inwards and all that kind of stuff. What like practical advice would you have for the young generation growing up, or anyone actually, that they can then implement on how to like better their view of the world and how to better their view of like being able to like look inside and being able to like change things within themselves?
I will put some sort of procedurals idea, because people willing to see something which is 1, 2, 3. For the young generation, actually. For young generation, actually, it's instead of saying a lot of things which is not meaning anything. Actually, this book, which we translated to English, and I think Muhammad Aman is having the copy of it. We are now going to print it. It's about Islamic worldview. It's regarding how Quran in general see the world around us, how we can fit in this world with different religions, with different ideas, with different people, because nowhere in the world now you can segregate yourself and live alone. You will live with others. Either you are minority or you are majority. There will be others in the community. And within this otherness, how you find yourself, if you don't see yourself that the Quran is helping you to adopt this humanity, our humanitarian idea, you will be lagging behind and you will have problems. So that the first step actually is to concentrate on the ideas which is in that book, which I think is related to the Quranic ideas. It will make a big difference, big start for the things. The second thing which we can do actually to change that worldview is to have a manual for the families. Now, young generation people is willing to see their kids better, but they don't know the way around. They don't have a manual which is telling them this is what you have to do. Actually, we are making a religious manuals which is regarding a few hadith, few ayah of Quran, and those young people being saturated of these talks in the families, and they see the life is totally different than what they are teaching them. So getting through this dilemma of seeing things from different prospects, we have to concentrate on small ideas and propagate that message to the kids. So within a manual, so the family can carry these ideas between time for their kids. They will reach the school where they have those ideas in their minds, and that will be the first blueprint in their minds, which we can build upon the rest of the building. So I think this will help a lot actually by going into of those two steps. First is to read this book carefully for people who's propagating the idea, and to concentrate on the simplest ideas in this book, and deliver it to the families in a manual, small manual, so the mothers knows what they are talking about, the fathers know what they are talking about, and that will make a good start for the whole thing.
Yeah, I completely agree, because in fact, a lot of families, parents lack knowledge. Maybe they grew up in a place where they were told to just pray and to do the the daily ibadat and all that kind of stuff. So they try to install that into their kids, and when they lack knowledge, they try to just get the kids to go to the markaz or the duksi or anything like that to help fill that gap basically. And then you have the issue of where these markaz, they don't really have a blueprint for these kids. They just teach the kids like just to memorize things. They don't really teach them the meaning and how to adapt these things into their life and all that kind of stuff. So would you even say that the blueprint needs to be implemented not only in the houses for the father and the mother, but also in the markaz and all these facilities that kids go to on a daily basis to learn the deen?
Definitely, I think we need a code also in all the teaching Islamic schools. A code which is telling people those kids will go to revolt somewhere on the way if they continue in the same ways, because there is a huge gap between their life and whatever they are telling them in those centers. And without seeing this problem in reality and trying to solve this problem, I think small booklets which shows the way ahead better than a lot of programs which is making no difference in the life of the kids. So we have to start from the families, then those centers, and concentrating in the smallest ideas, practical ideas. They have to do those things. So that will make a big difference in our lives.
Perfect. Jazakallah khair. Salman, you're mute, akhi.
Dr. Jazakallah khair for the comprehensive answer. A question I have that we've been sent in, Doctor, is as you appreciate, the role of women in society has changed and evolved quite dramatically over the past 100 years. No more so than here in the UK and in the Western world. Doctor, in terms of Muslim women and taking a increasingly leadership or leading role in society in their respective industries, what do our Islamic traditions say about this? And what are is it something that's supported? Is it something that's frowned upon? Is it do the women in our religion have a very specific place in for them to stay in, or is there a more evolved understanding of women's role and purpose in society?
We can find the answer for this question double-folded, and we can see it in Quran clearly, and we can see it in life, real life actually, which is also an ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Life is by itself is an ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can read things on the facts which is around us. So Quran is saying وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتُ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. So on the community, they have the same role. يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر. المنكر here either political or it is religious or it's moral or whatever it is. It could be a munkar. So they have sharing the same things with the males in the community, doing الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. So telling the people the right things and doing the right thing politically, economically, sociologically, whatever it is common between both. Now there is the biological fact, which is the difference between male and female and their role with the kids. And this is another fact also. So those two facts is going together. When a female is running the work in the house there is difference between the role of them, because she will feed the kids. She have more tendency towards hanan and toward passion, feeling toward the kids. Mothers is totally different ball game than fathers. Having said that, when we talk about the social responsibility for the community and leadership in the community, they are having the same capacity, and they can go on doing those things. The balance between those things actually is making the life actually difficult, because occasionally when there is a lot of things which is relating to the motherhood, it's subtract a few things from the community, and if the community is taking a lot of it, it will take something from that. So the balance is the problem. But in Quran, they are having the same duty. And in life, actually, we can see clearly that women can lead communities, can lead states, can do any other things which is in life. So my explanation, which is not religious, it's totally different than religious. My idea actually is that females during their reproductive period, when the kids are small and young, and actually the house take 55% of their energy. So there will be the rest 45 for the community. But when the kids grow up and reach their 16 and 15, and most of the mother at that time, they will be at their 40s if they are married young, the percentage will be reversed. So it will be 60-70 for the community and 30 for the house. But this is my idea actually of it. But I don't see a difference actually in the Amru bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar. It is the same for males and females in Quran.
Thank you, Doctor. And I think Fattah, Abdul Fattah, we have one question from him. So
just before Abdul goes into that question, I just wanted to ask Doctor one quick question in regards to how do we identify the future leaders of the young generation? And the second follow-up question to that is like, how do we facilitate for them to be able to grow and become those people that we need them to become, or for us to even be able to do that kind of stuff?
Actually, we are not synthesizing leaders. Leaders actually is usually they are minority in any community. But usually we are making knowledge and skills available for the bigger size of the community, and some of them will get through to be leaders because they are cut for that sort of action. So when we notice somebody who's having a talent, actually, we have to help him through, because he will pass through stages. Occasionally when they start, they are arrogant a little bit. They are deviant a little bit. They are not listening to whatever we are saying. So we try to kill them instead of just bringing up to be leaders at the next stages. So taking care of those people who's having those characters of ability to know and hard work and enthusiasm, you can notice those people between the herds, the rest of the group. But you have to give them time actually to grow through these stages of development to be real leaders after a while, because there is a lot of mistakes they have to learn from on their way up to be a real leader for the communities. Occasionally, we don't have the time and the patience for those people, and we kick them out. So they end up somewhere else, and we not get and we get the rest of people who is just nodding their heads and doing nothing, which is most common. Actually, you find them in groups where everything should be with obedience. There is a lot of heads which is nodding, but there is no work actually done. So this is the most important thing.
Jazakallah khair for that, Sheikh. I 100% agree, and as we can all agree, youth leaderships and leaders who are young, they are a great asset. But the problem we have in some communities is if you are very young and you talk about ideologies or things you want to do, the older generation will say, you know, what do you know about life? You were born yesterday. So how do we communicate with the older generation to step aside and let the youth kind of come up?
This is very difficult question. Actually, in traditional community, and even in developed communities, actually, people is not leaving their grounds for the young generation easily, and that's why Arnold Toynbee actually he talked about how a creative group after years in power, they turn to be oppressive groups for the new creative people. We have to teach our kids to be resilient and to work hard actually to get through these problems, because that's make their characters our leaders, not because we are paving way for them to go ahead, but because they can work it hard actually to get through. So time will come, but I think right now it's very difficult actually to move these old people from the situation where they are in. So there's still, even a Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu, if they come to them, he will say, you are young and you don't know actually, we know everything. So it's the same story.
It's one of the universal truths that has remained true for a very long time, unfortunately. Dr. Jassim, thank you so much for your time. I think we're going to conclude with my question. And my question is it's a simple one, Doctor. You've alluded to the need for a kind of a manual for families, for educational institutions that we can use to teach and implement the kind of depth of knowledge and understanding in the next generation. Is that something you're developing on now? Is that something you're working on now to develop?
Yeah, I'm actually working on that.
Okay.
And hopefully we will get something in, inshallah azza wa jal, in hand the next 9 or 10 months from now. We are working on that for our community, but it can be some sort developed for Britain or something else, somewhere else in the future. So we are working in that. Still, even we are in a community where it's a more relaxed community, still we don't have those manuals, which is telling the mothers and fathers what they're going to do, and telling the teachers what they have to do or not to do actually, because that's the most important thing. We don't have the main lines which we work on as communities. So everybody is trying whatever he knows to do, even if going to sheikh to make ruqya or to somebody to make some sort of magic or whatever it is, because this is what they need, reality. So we have to work hard actually.
Okay. And a follow-up question to that, Doctor. You mentioned that you've written about 18 books. I think that was a number that you gave initially. Are those books in Arabic and English? And if they are in Arabic, are there any plans in translating them soon?
Actually, unfortunately, one of those books being translated to English.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward some enthusiastic people to translate the rest of them. Because I can translate the books in English. Actually, I can translate them, but actually my English is not that good. I don't have the feeling. Always when I was in Britain, actually somebody said, "Oh, do you know English?" I said, "No." So, but you can speak English. I said, "No, I can speak English, but I'm not laughing in a joke in English." Because I don't know what they're talking about. So that's the difference between somebody who knows English and somebody who is just scratching with the service.
I disagree. I disagree, Doctor. I think your grasp of the English language is amazing, mashallah. May Allah reward you. Dr. Jassim, thank you so much for your time. It's been an incredibly illuminating conversation. Obviously, this kind of topic and these kind of themes and issues aren't going to be fully developed and fleshed out within 60 minutes. But this was a kind of a very brief and good introduction to these ideas and concepts. Inshallah, in the future, we look forward to the materials and the book that you've translated for it to be printed. And hopefully, we will look forward to doing more things with you in the future, inshallah. Thank you so much for your time. And I think on that point, we're going to conclude this session. Thank you for everyone for watching. We've been Scope. I've been Salman, Mahmoud, Yassin, and Abdel Fattah. Again, as per usual, thank you for joining. Do comment, like, and subscribe. And until next time,
and learn Arabic, because these books are not coming out in English.
Thank you, Dr. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.